You know, for years, the advice we've all heard has been pretty straightforward. Eat more plants and be careful with the protein. But what if a lot of that advice is actually outdated? Right now, the whole conversation about protein is getting a major rethink, and the new science is showing us something that might honestly surprise you. And this quote really gets us right to the heart of it. It's from Carrie Forrest, a nutrition blogger who was, for a long time, a very committed vegan. Her words kind of perfectly capture the tension at the center of this whole debate.
So let's talk about Carrie's story. I mean, on paper, she was doing everything right. Her diet was absolutely packed with beans and soy and all sorts of other plant-based proteins. But here's the thing. Despite all that, she was just constantly exhausted. She just had this feeling deep down that something wasn't working for her body.
And then she hit a breaking point. She was on a trip to New York and just hit a wall. She realized this isn't working. So she made a decision that felt totally shameful to her, but also really necessary. She walked into a restaurant, ordered a steak, and you know what? She said it was delicious.
And what happened next was this incredible contrast. On one hand, the social backlash was just immediate and intense. Hundreds of angry comments, people unsubscribing, even friends walking away. But on the other hand, her body's reaction was the complete opposite. Her energy came back, her blood sugar felt stable. She said it felt like her body was finally getting what it needed. And it's this exact conflict that sets up the big scientific question we're diving into.
So you have to wonder, right? Was Carrie's experience just a one-off thing? Or is it maybe pointing to a much bigger, more widespread misunderstanding of what our bodies actually need when it comes to protein? Let's take a look at what the latest science is telling us.
Okay, check this out. For 30 years, the official guideline for protein has been pretty low, just zero point 0.8 grams per kilogram of your body weight. But now, a whole wave of researchers is saying, well, wait a second. They're recommending we aim for almost double that amount, especially if you're an active person. That is a massive, massive shift in thinking.
So, what does that actually look like on your plate? In the real world? Well, for most of us, it boils down to this number, 30 grams. But 30 grams of what? And maybe even more important, when?
And that's the key. 30 grams per meal. See, here's something you might not know. Your body doesn't really store protein the way it stores fats or carbs. There's no big tank for amino acids. That means you need a steady supply all day long for all that building and repairing your body does. So just trying to cram all your protein in at dinner time, it really doesn't cut it.
Okay, but I know what a lot of you are probably thinking right now. Hold on, isn't all that protein really bad for your kidneys? It's a super common concern, so let's tackle it head on.
Let's just put this one to bed. According to Dr. Luc Van Loon, who's a top protein researcher, this whole idea is a myth. It comes from a simple misunderstanding. See, doctors put people who already have kidney failure on low-protein diets as a treatment, but for healthy people, there is zero evidence that eating more protein causes kidney damage. It doesn't work that way.
All right, so we've got a new target for how much protein to aim for. But that's really only half the battle. Because as it turns out, the type of protein you eat is every bit as important. And to understand protein quality, you have to know about these guys, the 9 essential amino acids. The key word here is essential. It means our bodies literally cannot make them. We have to get them from food. They're the non-negotiable building blocks for pretty much everything.
Here's a cool way to think about it. Imagine your body is a construction site. One amino acid, called leucine, is like the foreman. It shows up and shouts, "All right, everyone, time to get to work." It's the signal to start building. But a foreman can't build a house without a big pile of bricks, right? Well, that's what the other 8 essential aminos are. They're the bricks. You need both to get the job done.
And this is where things get really practical and where we see a big difference between protein sources. So let's say you want to get about 30 grams of protein. A 4-ounce chicken breast will get you there for around 155 calories. But to get that same amount of protein from some common plant sources, well, you're looking at a much, much bigger plate of food and almost 700 calories. This isn't a knock on plants, it's just the math of how our bodies use them.
And the reason for that difference is all about absorption. Our bodies are just more efficient at getting the protein out of some foods compared to others. Things like fiber in plants can mean that a good chunk of the protein you eat actually passes right through. So it's not just about the grams on the label, it's about how many of those grams your body can actually grab and use.
So this all leads us to the big elephant in the room, the huge debate. If animal protein is so efficient for our bodies to use, what about all the headlines we see linking it to health problems and a shorter life?
I mean, come on, we've all heard this a million times. It almost feels like a fact, doesn't it? That a plant-based diet is just, hands down, the best way to live a long, healthy life. But here again, when you dig into the science, the story gets a little more nuanced.
Let's just take a step back and think for a second. Remember when we were all terrified to eat eggs? When dietary cholesterol was public enemy number one? And then the official guidelines changed. The same thing happened with saturated fat. For years, it was just bad, but now the conversation is way more complex. It's just a great reminder that nutrition science is always evolving.
Okay, so what about cancer? Well, according to oncologists who study this stuff, the data doesn't actually show that a strict vegan diet is better when it comes to cancer outcomes. What the data does show is a really strong link between eating a diet full of whole food plant-based foods and having a lower risk. The key phrase there is whole food. The real enemy isn't one food group versus another, it's ultra-processed junk, whether it's meat-based or plant-based.
So, after all that science, what are we supposed to actually do? How do we take all this information and use it in our day-to-day lives? Well, let's put together a simple protein playbook for you. All right, here are the big takeaways. First, try to shoot for around 30 grams of protein with each meal. Second, spread it out across the day, and definitely don't skip breakfast. Third, try to prioritize high-quality, complete proteins. And just remember, if you're getting most of your protein from plants, you might need a little more food to hit that target. And finally, maybe the most important rule of all, focus on whole foods.
And hey, if you need one last little push, listen to this. This is Dr. Carol Johnston. She's been a nutrition researcher for over 40 years, and based on this exact science we've been talking about, she recently changed her own diet. She, a top nutritionist, started making sure she got a protein-packed breakfast every single morning. When a 40-year veteran of the field changes her own habits, it's probably a good idea to pay attention.
So let's leave it with this final thought. Protein isn't just about building bigger muscles. It is the literal foundation for your entire body, your immune system, your hormones, your organs, all of it. So the real question to ask yourself is, are you giving your body the right tools at the right time